Hey, Mage.
Yes, Fox.
Have you heard of this album, Lulu by Lou Reed and Metallica?
Metallica. It kicks ass, doesn't it? Metallica.
Lou Reed is singing about getting divorced from his husband. Ugh.
What a loser. I'd never get divorced.
Getting divorced is for losers
Yes,
and
sir.
ass wipes.
Hey, Fox. You ever heard of Kid Cudi?
No.
He made this Speedin Bullet to heaven. I can,
Why can't it be a speeding bullet into your ass?
I can
Beavis?
tell. I can tell you.
Beavis.
I can tell you. It's another Speedin Bullet.
I should have had a soundboard for that sound effect that Beavis uses when he slaps Butthead on the couch.
That would be perfect.
It's a good soundboard. Anyway, this is not Beavis and Butthead season 3 of the reboot, season maybe 12 of the whole continuity. This is the Foxx and the Mage podcast, a music-based podcast. My name is Foxx Navarro.
My name is Mageclick.
And this is the podcast where we talk about albums that we give each other to review that have thematic similarities or just whatever. It's our thing, and we're going to have fun with it.
All right, so let's get down to business. What album did you give me?
I gave you the album Speeding Bullet to Heaven by Kid Cudi.
Oh yes, that
And
sure is an album.
and likewise, the album you gave for me was
I gave you Lulu by Lou Reed and Metallica.
both albums that when they came out in some of the peak eras of being on the internet and just hating things mindlessly, a incredibly negative reception. But enough time has passed that their reception has been reevaluated by a lot of people. Nobody really thinks that these albums are masterpieces, but they are not seen quite so vehemently negative as they used to. And I thought it would be interesting to kind of examine these two very infamous projects with our own fresh lens and to see what they might have in common and to kind of see with the original reception or maybe the revised interpretation is the most accurate.
Yeah, I think this is a fun project. I feel like there are some fun parallels we could potentially draw between these two. Of course, they're also very different from each other.
Oh, you don't say.
So, where shall we begin?
All right. If you want, would you like to start with kind of giving some of your overall thoughts on Speeding Bullet to Heaven?
Yeah, sure thing. Alright, so Speedin Bullet to Heaven is an album I'd known for a long time as being this apparent notorious flop, a out of genre experiment gone south from acclaimed, talented artist, rapper Kid Cudi. Most notoriously, I remember Fantano gave it a 0.
His very first 0, if I recall correctly.
Yes, I believe he's a bit kind of to it now, but honestly, I don't really give a fuck what Fantano thinks.
Yep.
Anyway, so this is basically Kid Cudi going grunge, and I will say, I'm going to preface this by saying that I only listened to the first disc, since the second disc is more or less demos, outtakes, alternate versions of stuff.
Valid.
This album is pretty good.
Really? Oh, interesting.
I will say that I'm not head over heels for the album as a whole. Even just that first disc. It feels its length. It feels like an hour. It's I'll I'll get to the parts that I like first, though. So there were some gnarly ass guitar tones all throughout this album. He knows his shit when it comes to a guitar. That much is clear.
That part was interesting and I know that listening to that album 10 years later, it's impossible not to compare it to the other attempts by rappers to breach out of their genre, whether it's something like MGK or Logic Supermarket, project or whatever Jeezy's doing, projects like that. And the one thing you can say about Speedin Bullet to Heaven is that it is sincere. It's a very sincere attempt to explore this new sound. I don't think there's a single cynical soul or cynical bone in his body.
Oh yeah, he was just bearing his soul out there. I'm pretty sure this is the most vulnerable I've ever heard this man.
So have I, yeah.
It's like, honestly, kind of made me tear up at times. I also want to say that even the interludes were nice little pieces of 90s ass grunge and apparently shoegaze at one point. Again, looking through my notes.
Gotta have that shoegaze.
Yeah, specifically referring to Seance Chaos, which I have starred, by the way, which means I have it saved to my personal playlist.
I did. That was one of the gripes that I had with the album, was that sometimes the production or the commitment to that raw, authentic production smothers it. Like a song like Seance Chaos should have more chaos, and I think if the production gave the instruments a little more room to breathe, it would sound a bit more chaotic, and that could have made it better.
Honestly, I kind of disagree. Huh?
Oh, just yeah.
I kind of disagree with that. I try not to compare things to Death Grips so haphazardly, but I feel like this instrumental could pass as a Death Grips instrumental, like, verbatim.
I could see, yeah, definitely one of the older ones.
Yeah, it's like
The Money Store.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, maybe it could have been a little more chaotic, but it is just raw and brutal, and it definitely scratches a certain part of my brain that hardly anything else on the album does. Yeah, it's like just a little interlude, but it's one of my favorite songs on the album, and that's not intended to be a backhanded insult. Backhanded compliment.
That's one of the other things people have said about this album is, and honestly one of the things that I kind of agree with, is that it's a lot of the songs are just kind of one or two ideas stretched out for song length without that much to differentiate or to kind of change the momentum, which is something that in rap music is expected and totally acceptable, but in rock music that lack of dynamics can kind of wear out its welcome. That does, I guess, put some focus on the lyrics, which again usually the thing people even who hate the album praise the lyrics, or at least the honesty of them.
Yeah, I can see that. I definitely do feel that on some of these tracks. Pretty sure Fuchsia Butterflies. I only wrote a total of 2 notes for that, and that's one for each listen. Like, it's kind of just there. I didn't really feel much for it. Kind of like I struggle to say that it carries the flow of the album, because the flow gets broken up way too often.
And what does break up the flow of the album every so often?
Those 2 chuckle fucks. I love Beavis and Butthead to death, but they do not belong on this album.
It's not even the type of album they would enjoy.
Yeah,
I've watched so much Beavis and Butthead from the 90s. This is way too moody to be something that they would vibe with this heavily.
It's like, every now and then, it's like they'll find something moody they like. I remember they liked Radiohead's Fake Plastic Trees, but this is not Fake Plastic Trees. Nothing here comes close to that.
It really isn't.
Like, also, but props to Kid Cudi for actually getting Mike Judge himself to get on this album and do the voices.
I did. I have to admit, I did laugh when Mike Judge was doing the voice of Mr. Van Driesen, and he was saying, "What now, kids? Cudi will expand your mind, and I know you've also taken a lot of hallucinogens, and that will also do that for you." It was pretty cool, yeah, of Mike Judge to work on this project. I know he's somebody I've always thought was super funny, but and having him on this one does feel a bit
Yeah, it's like
he's chasing '90s nostalgia almost a little too
yeah.
obviously.
I wrote down that it made me wonder if Beavis and Butthead were like his comfort characters.
Ooh, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. I could believe that. Yeah.
Like maybe this is just some form of therapy for him, just like the rest of the album.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me if that was it, because I mean the rest of the album is so personal, and it's clearly, that like Nirvana-esque sound that he's going for clearly has to mean something to him, or he wouldn't have put the whole album in this aesthetic, in this genre.
Yeah, and I get that to a degree. Like I was not around for the '90s at all, but like pretty much what we see, what the public generally perceive as the '90s, just that whole ethos does speak to me a lot, and has definitely made an influence on my life. So I can only imagine how that is for someone like Cudi, who was around for that, and has and clearly wants to keep that spirit going.
And I get, even going back to the themes of sincerity, one of those big themes of the '90s ethos is, staying true to yourself, avoiding selling out at all costs. And again, it's impossible not to compare this to something like, Machine Gun Kelly's foray into pop punk, which, I don't want to just straight up call that insincere, but it definitely was more, it's a more shallow appreciation. And, considering his bouts of genre hopping, one could absolutely, I think, interpret that as being cynical and yeah, like the contrast does, make Speedin Bullet that much clear in hindsight. And you can say the same about Lulu, I think, which is also sincere, maybe to a fault.
I can see that. So I do want to say, maybe Machine Gun Kelly going punk wasn't completely cynical, but him going country was.
Yeah, that is the thing. Like, him going country made me reevaluate the way I looked at him going pop punk. Like, it made me view that's how I thought of that.
Yeah, but we're not here to talk about him, so I won't go further on that. Anyway, okay, where was I? My absolute favorite song on this album was "Judgmental Cunt," and like it's not even close.
That seems to be the favorite.
It's Yeah, I am a huge whore for big sounding drums. So yeah, and this has some loud ass drums. They're loud in a good way.
Oh yeah, they're the most raw things on the whole album.
Yeah, and
I think
I also like how I know he's kind of slurry throughout the whole album, but I feel like it works best here. Like when everything else is just chaotic and free flowing, I think him slurring his voice just adds to it that much more.
And that's always been a trademark of him, and I did think that it was interesting to see him try that onto a genre like this, where that has had a lot of kind of caterwauling type singers. Eddie Vedder comes to mind.
Oh yeah,
particularly, and Kid Cudi has a much nicer sounding voice than a lot of those '90s people, if I'm being honest. But he has a much nicer sounding voice than a lot of people.
Yeah, it's there's a reason people find his hums very therapeutic.
Yeah, that does not come from nothing.
Yeah. Like, maybe, yeah, I'm sure that's what he was going for here, was that Eddie Vedder, Lane Staley type of thing. But he was, like, giving it his own spin. He's not just copying them, like your average 2000 post-grunge band. Like, he's just doing it his own way.
Yeah, this is very distinctly Kid Cudi. Like, you can't mistake this for any other artist.
Except Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, that's Kid Cudi featuring Mike Judge.
Yeah.
And also Plain Pat.
True. I will say, there was a song in here that, hang on, let me find the notes. Okay. Like there's a song in here where he was just breathing deeply into the mic, and that part I actually kind of found uncomfortable. I know that was the intention, but I think I just don't. I think I just don't like ASMR.
Yeah, it's not going to be for everyone.
Yeah.
Especially in the context of something like this, which is kind of a, I don't know, it is very, like, dismal album. I mean, by design, obviously, that's the point, but it is one that very much, yeah, it can, like, get you down and, like, kind of weigh on you.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, that
Much
song,
like our other album. Yeah, sorry.
That song in general was just very creepy, though. Like, it was the intention. I love me some creepy music. Like, you see swans on the hoodie in my avatar.
Yeah.
Like,
that's right.
Yeah, I just don't like breathing into the mic at all. But that being said, the fact that this song is basically a part one to the next song, Amen, does make it worth it to me.
Oh, the Nothing. That's what song what you're talking. Oh, I like the Nothing. That might be one of my favorite songs on the album, just because I think it accomplishes its atmosphere very well. It's very it does. It feels like fading into nothing. You know, very honest kind of depiction of the drugs and this allure that marks a theme with the album. Sorry,
yeah, I can definitely say this. It is definitely not filler. Like it fits in the album. Excuse me. With Amen, I honestly kind of compared it to Analog Horror.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's like it had one of the strongest riffs on the entire album too. It is just one riff, but that's kind of just what I like.
Yeah, that's a lot. I guess that does make sense. Yeah, a Swans fan wouldn't mind the repetition we see on display here.
Yeah,
since it is all for the point of that's an interesting perspective. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, it's like as long as it's just one really good riff, and I would also like to add in lyric, my pronouns are they, them. Gotta have that. We gotta make that lyric when we remix this song. I'm kidding. Yeah, when I made the Analog Horror comparison, my mind went to a very specific place, and that was that Reverend Chris and Michael Hader album.
Oh, yes. That one from a few years back.
Yeah, I think, I kind of guess there's like a kind of vibe, kind of like that throughout this entire album, that this album does sound like it's falling apart. Like this just feels like something, this just feels like something we're not supposed to be hearing.
Yeah, I think that and the vulnerability of it does contribute to that. It is very I don't want to say ramshackle because that has a negative connotation, but there is, yeah, a kind of sense that everything is like being loosely tied together, which again I think is what he was going for.
Yeah. I also want to talk about the last two tracks because I feel like these two close the album beautifully. So the title track, when I first listened to that, I thought that it should have been the actual closing track instead of Embers, but I changed my mind on the second listen because when I really paid attention to the lyrics on that second listen, the whole thing made me realize that he is just Stepford smiling. He's not actually happy here. Like this is just denial. It's just Jim Fort telling himself to get through it, telling himself to smile so that eventually he will be able to smile for real.
Yeah.
And I think this is also paralleled with the fact that, well, at least I guess it's not the fact, but I'm pretty sure these are the least fuzzy, most clean instrumentals in the entire album.
I did notice that. Yes, that is a very kind of like a refresh. It's like this is a clarity that he wants that song to throw at you.
Yeah. Well, Embers seems to be saying that what I took from that is that while it doesn't explicitly sound as uplifting and joyous as, relatively speaking, as the title track, it feels like a state of acceptance. Like things are going to be fucked up, but you're still alive. And you don't have to let these inner demons control you.
He's just on the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
And he knows that he'll be happy when he gets there.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, I could just listen to that song, but like, I don't think that's a fair comparison, because that is probably one of my favorite songs of the 2000s.
For a lot of people.
Yeah, but like, I'm sure this one is extremely important for him. Like, this whole album.
I'm kind of disappointed. Considering the extreme negative reception, I'm not surprised he didn't make another stab at it. But it would have been interesting to see him do another attempt at this sound with one attempt under his belt.
He kind of did, though. But like that well's been poisoned now because it was on Kid Cudi Ghosts.
That was gonna say, yeah, that was and that was supposed to be like the big mea culpa of it, and people are just gonna that well's been poisoned.
Yeah, there's. I don't want to go deep into that today.
Well, give him a third attempt. I don't know what he's up to now, but he's gotta.
Yeah, I would love to
try
hear.
At some point.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Especially since he was like ahead of the time on that. Rappers have been pulling that move for a while now. Yeah, and I think Lil Yachty probably had the best received one of it, but you should give it another go, I think.
Oh yeah, I remember that Lil Yachty album. I definitely did not expect that. Can't say I've really returned to it or really heard anyone talk about it since the year it came out. But like people were like, he was doing it and people liked it.
Yeah, that was huge for like that's huge for like 5 months, and then I think he kind of said a bunch of weird things about like all my old stuff is terrible. I think rubbed people the wrong way.
Yeah. Also the AI cover is terrible in principle.
That was that was the early days of AI. Like I remember Dolly 2 would just generate completely fucked up images.
But I don't know. I'm just saying, like I think at that point we figured we knew the the moral problems with AI slop.
We did, yeah.
But I don't know if the industry as a whole did. So like maybe he didn't.
And it probably would be consistent with his. I.
I don't know. That's not something I care to.
Also, like the album itself is like, is it supposed to be like a UN General Assembly meeting? Like, why are there people in like a conference room for your psychedelic?
Yeah, that's the thing too.
Album.
But like, I don't know, but maybe we can dig into that on another day.
That's right. But for now, we have to move on to Lulu, the 2011 collaboration between Lou Reed and Metallica, which I have listened to.
Which I have on CD.
So, the first impression that I get with an album like Lulu is that, and I know this is what a lot of people were saying at the time, I'm, not recycling any, or I'm not creating any innovative discourse here, but, both Lou Reed and Metallica are artists that are no stranger to alienating their fan bases with new and risky and bold artistic directions that end up messing with a lot of the purists that they have in their fan base.
Oh, yeah.
And, Lou Reed is a guy who's, in 2011, his, like, most acclaimed material is back in the 60s and 70s. Metallica's most acclaimed is the 80s and 90s. They're both in positions where they do have these big entrenched fan bases, but they're have been no stranger to controversy, whether it's something like Lou Reed's Metal Machine music, or his increasingly kind of abstract and verbose later work, and Metallica, like my dad remembers telling me about when the Black Album came out and all the metalheads at the high school were pissed off that they were selling out. So over the Black Album, 1991. So Metallica fans have been crybabies for a while now.
Yeah,
just to be right. Blunt about that. And then of course you have Load, Reload, Saint Anger, infamously, Death Magnetic, which people were complaining about the production on that because it did sound better on the Guitar Hero version, and that was 2 years before Lulu. So
3 years.
Magnetic, was that 08 or 09?
That was 08.
You're right, it was 08. Okay. So, yeah, and we have these two artists in a place where they are in the perfect position to irritate both people. And I have a hard time believing, especially with what we know about people like James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich in particular, that the idea of spite didn't go at least a little bit into the motivations for doing this project. But then you don't record 10 tracks, an hour and 30 minutes of material about an obscure German play from the turn of the 1900s without doing it because you want to do it.
Yeah,
And I think that, like, sense of stubbornness, and I mean, interrupt at any time if you want to elaborate or kind of question anything. But then that stubbornness does come across in the music itself a bit, because neither Metallica nor Lou Reed want to compromise their style in any way. Although Metallica does a little bit on the slower songs, I can get into that later, but you are hearing, Lou Reed's kind of raspy, monotone, speak-sing, kind of spoken word vocal deliveries, and you're hearing Metallica chunk out these heavy riffs, and occasionally James Hetfield is shouting something that sounds ridiculous out of context, which is not new for Metallica. Like, Metallica has always had a lot of James Hetfield shouting ridiculous shit.
Yeah, that's kind of just his thing. He's just he's basically a preacher. Like, he says ridiculous things, and he always ends his sentences with, ah!
Yeah. He does. Yeah, so, like, him shouting, I am the table, a few times. Like, I don't see how that's any more ridiculous than some of the lyrics on Enter Sandman. But at the same time, I do understand that I am listening to an old man rambling about this kid. But I didn't actually realize that Lulu was a concept album. I kind of thought it was some character vignettes, so I actually went and looked up some stuff about the plays that this was about. It's like 2 plays by this German guy about this Lulu character who... And as far as I can tell, these plays are like the 1900s equivalent of something like a Joss Whedon or a Quentin Tarantino movie, where it's something. It's like a female character doing female character things, and it was probably made for very shallow reasons. But because it was shallow, it can be claimed by people as being both feminist and as being misogynist, because it's just this. That's the impression I got just from reading about what these plays were and what the reception was like.
I have an interesting story about that.
By all
we'll get
means.
into that. We'll get into that later.
Okay. So yeah, and hearing that it is absurd, and I'm sure the fact that for most of these songs. And I mean, I'll be honest, it is kind of tricky for me to tell sometimes whether these songs are supposed to be from the point of view of this Lulu character or the point of view of the men in her life. I know that she has a lesbian lover at some point. I think the song Dragon is from her perspective.
You're further along on that than I am.
Okay, there we go. It's all so... But yeah, I guess it is, like, knowing it's a concept album, and... let me just drink a little water.
Drink water, too.
Anyway. And so listening to Lou Reed tell these stories, and then James Hetfield given this, like, okay, like, I listened to Brandenburg Gate, the first track, and the first thing I noticed is that Lou Reed is, essentially telling this prose, this poem. It's from the perspective of a small-town German girl, and, I don't have a problem listening to Lou Reed kind of tell a story from that perspective, because he is a singer-songwriter, and these are stories, and when James Hetfield follows along with Small Town Girl and things like that, I do understand that it's... Maybe being a hype man is not the right word for it, but it adds to the atmosphere.
I think hype man is appropriate. He's definitely channeling his inner Flavor Flav.
That is what I noticed. I was expecting more James Hetfield on this album. I was surprised that it feels like after the first 2 tracks he kind of goes away for a bit.
Yeah, the Metallica part is basically just the instrumental. This is basically a Lou Reed album, and Metallica is just contributing to the instrumentals.
And that is what I've heard some people say. Like, it seems like the people who hate this album the most are people who think of this as a Metallica project that was spoiled by having Lou Reed on it, instead of, a collaboration between 2 people working together, or even as primarily a Lou Reed project, because this is the kind of thing that is emphasized by his vision, and we know Lou Reed has worked with harsher music in the past, so it's not like him doing a metal album is inconceivable.
It's like, I feel like the softer version of that is all the newer pop features that say they feature Elton John. He's just playing the piano.
That's true.
Similar principle here. Like, Metallica is not going to be James on. Like, there doesn't need to be James on every song or even most of them. Lou Reed got the band, got the whole band, and the whole band is going to play.
And I think the band does some very good things. Like, one of the things you can always say about Metallica is that they're incredibly atmospheric. They're really great at demanding your attention with their music.
Oh yeah, it's like
And the song, like, it just makes Lou Reed's vocals stand out all the more, the harsh. And, songs like Dragon, or just have this, like, intensity to it that, you can really feel the anger boiling up. And then when Lou keeps, shouting this poetry, you should really feel it absorbed me. Like, I felt for this character, whoever they were. I really felt something emotional for it.
Yeah. This might be a weird comparison. I might have heard this once before, but there's a couple songs on here that reminded me of Slint.
Honestly, the song, what's the cheating song? The cheating song, Cheat on Me. Yes, that one felt very Slint-like. To me.
I said that a lot back when I just knew Slint, but now I think I'd compare them to a different Kentucky post-hardcore band from that time, Rodan.
Ooh, Rodan. I don't know if I'm familiar with Rodan that much.
I think it's mainly because they kind of go further into the post-hardcore. But, like, honestly, either one works. Like, it's just, you got the riffage, and you got some guy just rambling, and it's very atmospheric, and just build and build. Yeah, it's a Slint song.
I thought that was interesting because usually when Metallica does something slower, it's so I thought the slower instrumentals from Metallica were weaker, but I also acknowledge and understand that they were trying for something different, something more, like something that's not thrash metal. Because with some Metallica slower songs like Welcome Home Sanitarium or the Unforgiven series, they are slower songs, but they still grab you. They're still grandiose. They're huge. And I felt like with these songs, they just they're not as engripping as in the way that I expect a Metallica song to be. It's kind of, like, it was easy for me to get distracted for it. And I also had that problem with the song Junior Dad, for what it's worth.
Oh, that's my favorite song on the album.
Which it seems to be the one that people like the most. Like, I saw a comment on RYM that was happy that Junior Dad got into Metallica's top 100 rated songs.
Oh, so that seemed. Wait, what is this top 100?
I don't know. Like, I like Rate Your Music does this thing now where they will, like, rank and rate individual songs instead of just singles, and I guess Junior Dad is in the 100 top Metallica songs according to Rate Your Music users.
That sounds about right. This is quite literally a post-rock song. And I am a post-rock whore, so naturally it's my favorite song on the album.
I was reading that apparently this song made Kurt Hammett and James Hetfield cry when it was first being recorded because Lou Reed's poetry was so powerful.
It made me want to cry.
It is very strong. Like, I mean, that line, it was like a Junior Dad. That shit just, like, kind of hits you like a truck.
Yeah,
it was incredibly impactful. I just wish it wasn't. I don't think it needed to be 19 minutes.
And again, I don't really care about the 19 minutes. So I will say, I know that this album is a concept album, and I'm sure this has some sort of relevance to the concept. But I just saw it as, I always just thought of it as a sort of eulogy, a self-eulogy from Lou Reed, since this is the last song on the last Lou Reed album.
I mean, that subtext is pretty hard to ignore.
Yeah, like, I know technically, like, he featured on a Metric song after this, but this is basically the last Lou Reed song.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Like, this is his goodbye. This is, like, yeah, this is his Black Star. Or I guess more accurately, this is his I can't give anything away. But yeah.
Apparently, yeah, David Bowie really fucked with this album.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
And people said that, yeah, he was super into it. And if this ended up influencing Black Star, it wouldn't surprise me.
Oh yeah, I'm sure
You can see
yeah.
some lines and some things in common.
I mean, the man, she punched me like a dude fits right on Lulu.
Mm.
It's just that whole song in general just feels very Lulu-esque.
There you go. Yeah, I think.
I promise that's a compliment.
I get that, and I think again, like another thing you can say about this album is that, like Speedin Bullet to Heaven, it is incredibly, overwhelmingly sincere. Like as bullheaded as the artist might, and apparently at one point Hetfield and Reed almost got into a fist fight while recording this, and
That
I
sounds
think,
accurate.
yeah, I was like, oh, I absolutely believe that, and they're. Yeah, and like that emotions, those things really pour through this album that I think in an era of increasing cynicism, these things are as welcome anytime we can get them.
Exactly. So, I do want to talk about an interesting song in particular. Interesting in kind of weird way. I want to talk about the disc 2 opener, Frustration. So, the line, spermless like a girl.
I was thinking about that one. Yeah, I was like, I've never heard it spermless. I've never heard that word used before this song.
So this is definitely a character. This is definitely a character piece. But like, yeah. The thing is, it definitely squeaked me out when I first listened to it. And when I first listened to it, my egg was not cracked at all. But now listening to it, post egg crack, I don't care.
Interesting.
I've heard my least favorite song on the album though, because like it's I don't know. In general I don't really get that much out of the instrumental palette here, or honestly Lou Reed's poetry compared to the rest of the album. Like it's kind of like it's really the only song on the album that I don't have saved to my personal playlist.
Yeah, I get that. It is like instrumentally, I didn't think of it as particularly distinct from the other songs like Dragon or Iced Honey or Mistress Dread. Mistress Dread, I thought that is some of my favorite Metallica instrumentals ever. I think are on Mistress Dread.
Mistress Dread is so cool.
The way it just keeps going, and it never gets boring. Like you'd think it gets boring, but it just doesn't. It just kind of, and again, Lou Reed's good poetry and his anxious delivery and his like kind of piles on contributes to that. So I think my favorite songs were like Iced Honey, Mistress Dread, The View, and Dragon.
Yeah, it's like that whole first disc is just phenomenal. I gotta say, like I genuinely mean that. I like the first 4 songs in particular. It's just such a great 4-track run. It just really sets the tone for the album. It's like it lets you know like this is not gonna be an album the type of album you hear every day. Even if you end up not liking it. You definitely you definitely have a hard time saying it sounds like anything else you would know from Metallica, at least.
Yeah, or anything in mainstream metal in general.
Yeah, it's like
it's hard, and I feel like I am getting more into. Like, I have not been the biggest metalhead for most of my life, but I am starting to appreciate like avant-garde metal acts, bands like Imperial Triumphant, Between the Buried and Me.
I think you would love Ash Inspire.
I think they're on my list. I know they're the band that did Hostile Architecture, right?
Yeah, I got that album on vinyl.
Yeah, that one's on my to listen list. And as I do start to appreciate metal music that embraces its weirdness, I do think that this album it's a gem. And I'm not going to say it's my favorite thing in the world. I'm not going to say I think all the executions are perfect or flawless, but I think we do have something one of a kind. We have a pretty decent swan song from Lou Reed. You can tell that he really cared about these plays a lot, and I think, and again, if like my comparison of those original plays to like Joss Whedon movies and shows are true, then I think you could argue Lou Reed probably gave more emotion to these characters and was intended in the original play, or at least I would believe that, since Lou is like was one of those empathetic types of writers.
Yeah.
And he really delivers with such passion. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things that you have to love its existence. And it's also one of those things that if you ever meet anybody who just dismisses it out of hand as something that's not worth taking seriously, you can kind of not take that person seriously. Because
it's like, at least give it a shot. You don't even have to make it the whole way through. But, like, definitely at least give it a chance if you're interested in any kind of avant-garde music. Just don't let the hate that this album generally gets online, don't let that hate cloud your judgment. It's like I feel like a lot of that hate has come from, yeah, like you said, just Metallica fans that were just expecting, that have a hard time looking at this as, as also a Lou Reed album, or really just anyone just like, because when you look at it as just its own thing, divorced from the discographies of really either artist, it really does stand in a league of its own.
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. It is a singular project that stands out, and that's what we should want from our artists, especially from a band like Metallica, that even their like attempts to like reach out and experiment. I mean, like, I don't know, like, can I gun to my head, is someone going to tell me that Load and Reload sound all that different from the stuff from like the Black Album or the 80s? It's metal all the same. It's just a different shine on it. Right. And yeah, and I think that's why I like avant-garde metal. It is the type of metal where people are a little less gatekeepy.
Exactly. Also, I will say this: of all the Metallica albums I've heard, this includes the Big Five. Lulu is probably the best produced of all of them.
Okay, honestly, yeah, that I wouldn't argue with you on that one.
Like I don't know, but like, it's like Metallica just has a lot of issues with production, but I guess they got it right on Lulu. I actually don't.
I wonder if actually who produced Lulu? Did Lou Reed bring in his own people?
Let me see. It might be on the booklet. It's not on the booklet. Shit.
Let's see. Wikipedia says Greg Fieldman, Metallica, Lou Reed, and Hal Willner.
Okay, so yeah, Lou Reed did have something to do with it. Alright, so yeah, I guess this merry band of producers went on and just made Metallica sound the best they ever sounded, I would say. At least of all I've heard from them.
I think so, yeah, because I think a lot of Metallica is, I guess not to get like too into weeds or off topic, but like part of the reason that people were shitting on Death Magnetic was because of its production. It was succumbing to the loudness war. It felt very suffocated, very much like it didn't have room to breathe. And I think Metallica, being a thrash metal band, has always prioritized being loud and intense over being clear. And I think maybe they couldn't predict the rise in audiophile types that would come when like the CD-ROMs were invented.
Yeah, it's like, because like when they started, you released albums on vinyl or cassettes. It was analog. There was a certain, there was like a certain threshold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like that raw sound definitely works for something like Kill 'Em All, where the whole album is just meant to be raw. But like,
Oh, yeah.
and I do still like how Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets sound, but wouldn't really call them some of the best sounding metal of the '80s in terms of production. I would say.
That's reasonable. I would also say the same.
Yeah. But yeah.
All right. Do we have any other thoughts? Sure. I think I've exhausted all my commentary on Lulu.
I think I have two. Like, but never let it be forgotten that James Hetfield is indeed the table.
Never let it be forgotten that he is the aggression.
And the tablet.
He's the tablet. He's all those other things.
Yeah.
Too. I don't know. I just think now I'm thinking about that image someone made where James Hetfield's face is imposed on a table.
Yes, the face of God.
The face of God. And then that's not because of like Dragon like contextualizes that line to mean that being a table means like being a pushover, being a doormat. That does kind of make me feel bad that people are making fun of that line.
Yeah, it's like it has genuine meaning to it. It just.
But then like don't shout that out loud out of context when you're Metallica. Like again, This was after Saint Anger. They should know that people will make fun of Metallica for every little slip up.
Yeah, pretty much. Alright, so
okay, now I've exhausted all my thoughts.
All right, cool. So, so what do we have planned for next episode, Fox?
Next episode, we have a theme that we... Do you want to tease the theme, or you just want to say the whole thing?
You can say the theme.
Okay, yeah. Well, the theme is going to be obscure side projects of slightly less obscure artists.
All right, sounds good. Looking forward to that.
We are going to do that one next.
Hell yeah. All right, so thank you for covering, everyone. I'm Mageclick.
I'm Foxx Navarro.
And I hope to see you on the next episode. Goodbye.
Goodbye.